Hello? Dito na ulit tayo. So, gagawin naman natin ngayon yung last of the 4 methods. Medyo tagal-tagal na. Pero ito yung pinaka-favorable, pinaka-widely used, pinaka-convenient sa lahat ng methods of solving for the net vector or the other unknowns ng mga vectors. So we have here now the last, which is the component method. So why component method? When we say component, we mean parts. We mean parts. So for example, 12. Pwede ang component ng 12 ay 7 and 5. Ibig sabihin, 7 and 5 are parts that comprise, well, parang ganun ibig sabihin. Or in this case, masasabi natin na, say for example, meron tayo isang vector. Sabihin na natin F1, F sub 1, na 75 keeps 40 degrees north of east. Ito yun. Dahil sinabi siya ay 75 keeps ang kanyang puwersa, hindi exclusive na papuntang kanan yon east. At hindi rin exclusively or entirely panorte. But instead, meron siyang east tendency at meron siyang north tendency. Ano ba yung gaano bahagi ng 75 keeps ang pakanan at anong bahagi niya yung directed pataas? So, yun yung kanyang components. So, before we proceed, pinapakita ko lang na I have plotted yung 4 vectors na given natin. In a simplified format na niya, plot ko siya. F1, 75 keeps 40 degrees north of east. With your F2 plotted in sa Cartesian plane, 30 degrees south of east, 25 keeps. 25 keeps, 30 degrees south of east. We have F sub 3, 100 keeps, 69.44 degrees south of west. And our F sub 4, second quadrant, 50 keeps 36.87 degrees north of west. So, hindi lang panimula, kasi sabi nga natin, yung si component, meron siyang x and y values. This is x and y parts. So, meron tayong f sub 1. Ibig sabihin f sub 1, meron siyang component, meron siyang bahagi na gumagalaw papuntang x-axis. At meron siyang bahagi na gumagalaw towards north. So, yan ang kanyang components. This is your Cartesian plane. This is the vector. Meron siyang east at meron siyang y component. Kung sasabihin natin, if this is your f sub 1, we will say this is your f sub x, f1x, or the x component of f1. Ito yung bahagi ni f1 na horizontal. And this one will be your f1y, the y component of f1. The part of f1 that is towards north. So may value ito, may mga value ito. Makuha natin yan. How? For us to be able to solve for the x and y components of a given vector, in this case f1, we need to draw a parallelogram. We draw a parallelogram na yung mismong vector ang pinaka-diagonal. So, Knowing that this is your y component of F1 and this being your x component of F1, galing dito, mirror image, since yun naman ay similar right triangles, if this is your F1y, this is also your F1y. If this is your F1x, this also means your F1x. So you have two triangles. Now, two similar triangles. One triangle, nakadikit sa x-axis, generating an angle of 40 degrees. And the other triangle, nakadikit sa y-axis, generating the complementary angle of 40. And that is 50 degrees. You have the freedom to choose kung anong triangle gagamitin mo. Yung traditionally or in practice, yung nakadikit sa isang ginagamit. Pero it doesn't necessarily mean hindi natin pwede gamitin yung other triangle na ang angle generated ay nakadikit sa reference na y-axis. Pwede rin yun. The reason why kung gagawa tayo ng kukuhin natin yung isang triangle, kung kukuhin natin isang triangle, sabihin natin nakadikit sa x. Ito, kinuha natin. Nung kinuha natin ito, we know that this is F1 na may value 75 kips. This is your F1y. This is your x component of F1. This is your angle that is 40 degrees. Automatically understood, yung opposite niya, yung other angle doon, is pegged at 50 degrees. Pwedeng gamitin, pwedeng hindi. After all, solvable naman yan. Why? If you are to use the angle that is 40, so katawa dahil may triangle yan. So, you will have, so katawa, see, cosine of 40 degrees is equivalent to your, so adjacent side, F1x, over your hypotenuse, F1. Ito natin sa F1. Now, take note na since ito yung nasa first quadrant, the x and y values are both positive. X and y values are both positive. So, your cosine 40 would have to be F1x adjacent of the hypotenuse F1. So, transposing, you will have the expression for F1x. Solvable na siya sa F1 cosine 40 degrees. Na kapag kinumpit mo, F1, which is 75 kips multiplied by cosine of 40 degrees, you will be able to compute for the value of the x component of F1. And that would have to be 75 cosine of 40, 57.45. So, two decimal places ko muna ako. Positive 57.45 kips. This represents your x component of F1. How about y? Using this triangle, sige natin yung ginagamit natin 40 degrees, yung nakadikit sa x. Solving for F1y, gagamit ka ng sine. So, sine of your angle 40, sine is so katawa, opposite of 40 is F1y, over the hypotenuse that is F1. Transposing, you will have to solve for F1y as the product of your F1 and the sine function of 40. So that would have to be 75 kips times the sine function of your 40 degrees, giving you an answer that's equivalent to 75 sine of 40, execute. 48.21. 48.21 kips. So that represents your Now, mapapansin na, yung x talaga laging cosine. Hindi. Nagkataon kasi nga na ginamit natin yung angle na 40 nakadikit sa x-axis. Dahil kung ang gagamitin natin yung other angle, yung complementary angle ng 50, ito yung mangyayari. Yung f1y magiging cosine. Check natin. Di ba, ito yung other triangle. Similar triangle. Yung angle na generate niya dito is 50 degrees. Ito yung nakadikit sa y. Alam natin na ang value nito, this is your f1y, this is your f1, this is your f1x. Now, kung gagamit ka ng cosine 50, cosine 50 would have to be kakawa, adjacent over hypotenuse. So, your f1y, or the y component of f1, would have to be f1 cosine of 50. Alam naman natin na ang cosine 50 degrees is equivalent to the sine function of 40. So, ang f1y natin ay f1 sine 40 or f1 cosine 50. It will give you or give us the same answer, that is 48.21 kips. Okay? So, yun yung halimbawa ng component method. So, you plot, hindi mo kailangan ng sukat na sukat, then kunin mo ang x and y coordinates, x and y components, gamit ang SOHCAHTOA, makuha mo na siya. But we need to be extra careful with regards to the signs. Kasi may values ng x and y na negative. Depende nga kasi kung nasaan siya na o quadrant. No? Sabihin natin yung F2. Yung F2. Now, allow me first to have this erased. Sa F2 tayo pumunta. Kung F2 ang ating kukuhan, F2 ang kukunin natin, ito yun. So, we will make, kukunin natin ang components. Gagawa tayo na rectangle. This represents your F2x. This represents your F2y. Kung ito yung F2y, ibig sabihin ito F2y din. At ito ay F2x din. Again, we have two similar triangles. Isang triangle na nakadikit sa x-axis at isang triangle na nakadikit sa y-axis. Ano nang gagamitin? Kahit alin. Again, ang naging practice nga lang, yung nakadikit sa x ang ginagamit. Kaya parang naging automatic na iniisip, kung ano yung nasa x cosine. Traditional lang kasi ginagamit ko. Why not try natin gamitin yung nakadikit sa y? Itong triangle na ito, nasa baba. Dahil yung triangle na yan, right triangle na ito, yung angle na natin sa kabila, 60. So, 60 yan. So, isa nakadikit yung 60. Nasa y. Sa pagitan ng y at saka ng f1. Alam mo na ito ay yung ng x. No? So, kung gagamitin mo yung 60, following SOHCAHTOA, you would have f1x, or rather f2x. You would have an f2x as sine y. Sine of 60 degrees is opposite f2x over hypotenuse f sub 2. Dahil yan ay nasa second quadrant, nasa fourth quadrant, ang ating x value ay positive. At pag kinuha naman natin ang cosine ng 60, the cosine of 60 is adjacent side f2y over kung saan ang F2y ay negative. Why? It's because siya ay nasa fourth quadrant. Fourth quadrant, positive x, negative y. So transposing, makuha natin ang values ng F2x at F2y. For F2x, we will have it as F2 25 kips times sine function of 60. For F2y, magiging negative 25 cosine of 60. Now, computation, makakakuha tayo ng values na for F2x, which is 25 sine of 60, that would have to be equal to 21.65. Positive 21.65 kips. And for your y component of F2, which happens to be negative, that would have to be 25 cosine of 60. Okay. 25 cosine of 60, total 12.5. So, negative 12.50 gives. So these are the x and y values of f sub 2. F sub 2. Now, paano man yung f sub 3? Ito yung ating f sub 3. Yung ating f sub 3, ito ko na lang gagawin. Mangyayari dito, yung angle na generate niya nakatingin sa x. So, ang kanyang components ay, this is F3y. Ito naman ang kanya, F3x. Dahil makakagawa tayo niya ng parallelogram. O rectangle pala. So kung may rectangle tayo, sabihin natin ginawa natin yung nakadikit sa west. So yung figure. This is your angle that is 69.44 degrees. This is your F3, which is equivalent to 100 kips. This represents your y component of F3. And this represents your x component of F3. Take note na ang x and y values ng third quadrant ay parehong negative side. So, doing the maths, since nakadikit sa x yung angle na gagamitin natin, ang x ang cosine. Try natin na bakit. Cosine of the angle 69.44 degrees. So, katawa, adjacent, negative F3 sub x over hypotenuse F3. So, you will have your F3x as equivalent to the negative F3, 100 kips times the cosine function of the angle 69.44 degrees. Now, computing, you will have 100 times the cosine function of 69.44. That would give you 35.12. 35.12 kips. Ingat, negative at that. So your F3x is negative 35.12 kips. And for your F3y, you will use sine of the angle 69.44 degrees. Sine of 69 is opposite. So that will be negative F3y over hypotenuse F3. Why negative F3y? Because it's in the third quadrant. Now, Transposing, you can have your f3y as negative f sub 3, which is 100 kips, times the sine function of your 69.44 degree angle. Evaluation would lead us to getting a value of 93.63. Negative 93.63 kips. As of now, what we have are X and Y components of your F1, your F2, and your F3. So, may isa na lang. And that is your F sub 4. For F sub 4, take note na ang ating X ay negative, ang ating Y value ay positive. Lalabas dito na if we are to generate again a rectangle, why natin kung use ang triangle na nakatikit sa X. So, it will give us this being your F4X component and this is your F4Y component. Yung X natin na negative dahil nasa second quadrant. So, your F4X would have to be equivalent to negative F4, which is 50, times the cosine function of 36.87 degrees. Combination would lead us to getting negative 40 kips. And for your F4Y, that would have to be sine. Why? Because sine of the angle is opposite F4Y over hypotenuse F4. Transposing, ranging, among F4Y would have to be positive F sub 4 that has may value of 50 times the sine function of the angle 36.87 degrees. Makuha mo doon 30 kips. 30 kips. So, now that we already have the X and Y components of the four vectors, the next thing na gagawin natin is to have them summed up. Total natin yung mga values. No? So, with that, ituloy natin. I-add natin sila lahat. So you will have the summation of horizontal forces. Ibig sabihin horizontal forces, X is equivalent to your F1X plus F2X plus F3X plus F4X, so on and so forth. Sakaling higit pa dun sa apat. And for the summation of your forces along the vertical or y-axis would be the y component of F1, the y component of F2 plus y component of F3 plus the y component of F4, so and so on. Now, that being the case, you can solve for the summation of forces along the vertical, the horizontal, or x-axis. As your F1X is 57.45, whereas your F2X is 21.65. Then your F3X is negative 35.12. And negative 40, negative 35.12. and negative 40, all having a unit of Gibbs. Summing din all up, say 57.45 plus 21.65 plus 35.12. No, it's not plus, it's minus. Negative 35.12 negative 40 is equal to 3.98. So 3.98 Gibbs. Summation of forces along the x-axis or horizontal. And the summation of forces along the vertical or y-axis would have to be F1y 48.21, F2y minus 12.50, F3y negative 93.63, and your positive 30, F4y. So, all having the unit that is Gibbs. So, adding them on, 48.21 minus 12.5 minus 93.63 positive 30 gives us 27.92 negative equals negative 27.92 Gibbs. So that is your summation of forces along the y-axis or the vertical. Now, as what I have made mention in the past, make it a habit to recheck, recompute, counter-check. Para kasi minsan hindi natin napapansin, mali na pala yung na-encode natin. But then again, I have pre-computed this, ito naman nga ilalabas. So mapapansin natin engineers na when plotted against, ang horizontal natin ay positive value, nasa positive x. Ang ating vertical component ay nasa negative, a negative value, so nasa y. So lumalabas na siya ay nasa 4th quadrant. So mapapansin natin na halos 4 lang yung kanyang horizontal. Parang 4 lang ang natumbas yan. At ito naman parang 28. So, itong beses na mas mahaba. So, possibly na rin yan. Itong beses pa. Yes, itong beses nga. So, gagawa tayo ng parallelogram. Narito yung resultant natin. Yan ang resultant natin. Because you have here summation of forces along the vertical and horizontal, and these are the summation of forces along the vertical y-axis. Lalabas na ito ang iyong FR. Yan ang iyong FR. Kung atin lang siyang palalaki ng illustration, para mas klaro natin makita, lumalabas na this being your Cartesian plane, narito yung ating resultant. Ito yung ating FR. Bakit naman? Kasi ito ang kanyang summation Fx or summation Fh. At ito naman ang kanyang summation Fy or summation forces vertical. Now, malaki na itong makuha natin dyan, bubuo tayo ng rectangle. Makuha natin yung angle na nakadikit sa x-axis, the angle generated by Fr with respect sa x-axis. Tawagin natin angle P. At saka, yun naman nakadikit sa y, tawagin natin angle eta. Eta. No? Kahit ano naman sa dalawa yun, pwede mong gamitin. No? So, kung gagamitin mo yung nakadikit sa y-axis, ito yun. Gagamitin mo nakadikit sa y-axis, meron kang triangle na summation forces vertical, summation forces horizontal. Kasi kung ano ito, ganun dito. Ano to? Ganun dito. At ito ang yung FR na pwede mo na naman makuha. So pwede mo kunin yung angle na ito. Pwede mo kunin yung angle na eta or yung isang angle na sa kabila. So, solving for FR and the angle generated with respect sa y-axis. Ito yung mga gaganap dyan. For FR, dahil siya ay right triangle na generate, gagamit tayo ng Pythagorean. So FR represents the C side, yung side ng ABC, yung hypotenuse. So, gamit ang formula na C squared is equivalent to A squared plus B squared, pattern after that, we can solve for FR. FR squared is equivalent to your summation of forces along the x squared plus the summation of forces along the y or vertical axis squared. Now, you would have it as FR is the extraction of the root of the sum of the squares ng ng ating summation FH at saka summation FD or the x and y values. So, that would have to be 3.98 squared plus the absolute value 27.92 squared. Evaluation, execution would lead us to getting FR. We can have the value of FR at 28.20. Double check lang natin. So, we have 3.98 squared plus 27.92, that is b squared. Then extraction of the root of the answer gives us 28.20 kips. Now, yung sagot natin via triangle method, kung nagkakamali is 28.19 kips. And as for the angle that is eta, pwede natin siya makuha via tangent. Bakit? Because tangent eta is SOHCAHTOA. Tangent of the angle is equivalent to the ratio of the opposite summation forces x over summation forces y. Using the absolute values, notwithstanding yung mga signs, makuha natin yung eta. Sure, your Greek letter eta would have to be x by 27.92 keeps cancelled na naman yung unit. You will eventually get the value of eta. That would have to be 3.98 to be divided by your 27.92 execution. Then you will get the inverse tangent of the answer. That gives us 8.11. 8.11 degrees. So, gathering them, combining them all, ito yung kailangan sinabi niyan FR sa yung angle. Babaklasin mo yung angle na ginamit natin ay nakadikit sa south. No? Coming from south, counterclockwise towards east. Kaya, our final answer would have to be FR equal to 28.20 kips, 8.11 degrees east of south. Or its complementary, that is 81.89 degrees south of east. Okay. So, that's it. I hope naging malinaw ang presentation. And for questions or mga paglilinaw with regards to this and the past topics, feel free na magtanong. Thank you very much and have a nice day.